Hello, this is a video explainer for the first assignment, the poster assignment on the foundations of advertising media. In this video, I'll be explaining how to choose a medium. I'm going to be talking about where you can get your research from, about actually creating the poster itself, how to hand it in, and also the other part, the presentation. So I'll be talking about all of those things in this session. Before I get into the detail of this, the information for all of your assessments is in a brief, and in ours you will find it, as with your other modules, in the assessment information section, which is here on the Nile site. You click on there and you download this document, which is the brief, and this is it here. But I'm going to try and give you sort of a shortcut to that today, but you should be reading that document in full and in detail. So first of all, you're probably wondering what an academic poster is anyway. An academic poster is a different way of showing the research that you've done. So instead of writing a report or an essay, you're actually producing if you think of it as one sheet of information, a bit like an infographic. So it's got more information on it than a poster, for example, to advertise something. It's got a lot more words on it, but it's a visual way of representing your work. The first thing you're going to need to do is select an advertising medium. I know a lot of you will have done this already by now, but just to be clear what is meant by an advertising medium, let me go through it. So advertising media tends to come in at different levels. There's usually a top level or a category level here. So for example, if we were thinking about the advertising that you see on a taxi cab, that is quite niche, quite specific. It actually fits in a subcategory of transport advertising, which in turn fits in the overall category of out of home. So if I was doing a poster about this, I would probably talk about all of those three things. I mean, you do have some leeway in this, but if you were to do it only on taxi advertising, you might not find enough information to put on your poster. So here's another example. A lot of people will be thinking, oh, I want to talk about YouTube advertising, or I want to talk about Facebook advertising, which is fine, but remember that that is a subset of social media advertising, and social media advertising is often thought of as a subset for internet advertising. So if you pick that to do your poster on, you could actually talk about all of these three concepts or ideas. It's not always that complicated. So here at the bottom I've got TV advertising, bit more simplistic. You could talk about one of the channels, that's what I've put here, but also you could talk about things like the difference between advertising on terrestrial TV and streamed TV. So those TV channels, someone like 4OD would be both a player in the sort of streaming services arena, but also Channel 4 is one of the main terrestrial channels as well. So there's more than one way to look at this, but that's a bit of a suggestion about the sorts of areas you might be covering. So now we've picked a medium, you have to do your research. So where is good research going to come from? Now we have done a formative exercise on this, so a lot of you will have taken part in that. You've had a go at finding some information and you've had some feedback, so you'll probably be starting to understand which of those sources you already picked on were good and which were not so good. But don't worry if you didn't get that far yet, just some thoughts about where you should be looking. So first of all, textbooks. If you go to the Reading and Resources tab on the Nile site and click through, you can get to a reading list, and this is a core text for this module. Just watch out, it's quite American. All the money's in dollars, for example, and the American TV market, for example, is quite different. But you should be able to use the textbook for some overarching principles or ideas. The next thing you can use is trade organisations. I've talked about this a lot in lessons. So each medium tends to have a trade organisation. So for example, the TV industry in the UK has Thinkbox, radio has Radar, the internet has the Internet Advertising Bureau. So whatever media platform you're choosing, try and see what trade bodies there are in the UK that relate to it. There's probably more than one, so that would be a good source for information. The next one is journal articles or things, databases. So journal articles, you get to them, don't be going through Google Scholar, because if you do that, it might help you to find them, but a lot of times you will hit a paywall. The whole point about the using the library is that we pay for for access to lots and lots of journal articles for you. So go through the library website and go and find journal articles. Use the search function in there. You'll see that also I've put here databases. Mintel and Walk are both great for marketing and advertising students. Walk especially is great at finding case studies. I'll come on to what to do if you don't know how to find those in a minute. The next place to get good information from is the government. So for example, the Office for National Statistics, it's the ONS for short, ONS. You can get a lot of publicly available data by going to their website, and that would be legitimate, good data. Statistics in particular need to be right up to date, so it's always best to try and find something from this year or last year if you're going to quote a statistic. And then the last place, and this is really the least good one, is using agencies and advertisers. This is the stuff you'll get to if you just Google for it. But you've got to remember that agencies are essentially trying to sell you stuff. It's not a particularly rigorous or it's not considered very good academically. However, if you want to talk about a campaign or you want to include information about an agency that works in a particular medium, that's fine. You can include a little bit from them, but please don't rely on lots of your information from an agency. It's very biased. If you are stuck in finding some information, go and ask an academic librarian. This is what they're there for. If you go to the library, they've usually got yellow lanyards on. Go and ask someone and they can help you to find the information you need. So having found the sources of your information, you've got to try and decide which bits to include in your poster. I've put a little information sheet here on trying to evaluate sources. This is a generic one, so it's not just for this poster. It's a general guide on how to decide whether the information you've chosen is appropriate. So you can have a little look at that. But for this poster, I would say consider, is there a logical flow between the bits that you found? Or can you make one? I'm going to be talking more about narrative flow in a minute, but do the bits hang together in some sort of logical way? Is it all from the UK? One common mistake on this assignment is that students grab bits of information from America in particular, or examples from America. Unless you have explicitly decided to research a media platform in a different market, please try and make sure it's all from the UK. Is it about advertising? Now, when we think about these media platforms, oftentimes, I mean, they are either educational or news media as well. I don't want a history lesson about the printing press, or I don't want to hear extensively about journalism, or for example about the BBC, which doesn't even carry advertising. So you need to make sure that your poster is about advertising. Have you used a nice variety of sources? So if you want one of the better marks, what you should be doing is thinking about a range of places. So, you know, several textbooks, several journal articles, several pieces of data from several places. That's what's going to attract a higher mark. Have you considered the range of content format? So for example, when you're making this poster, instead of it all being sort of sets of bullet points of statements, you know, you could include a quote from somewhere, or a definition of something, or a graph or a chart, or a picture of a campaign. So think about creating a range of format content. And really, really importantly, have you included references? The references should appear in two places in your poster, right next to the place where you said it. I'm going to do a little demo here. So if we're thinking about this here, if this was from Cardi, obviously you wouldn't use my first name, and 2018, we'd put it right next to the words. And then at the bottom of the poster, you would have what's called the Harvard referencing in small print all the way along the bottom. That's what I expect in terms of the referencing. Go and find out how to Harvard reference. You can go to skillshub.northampton.ac.uk and you can find lots of information on how to reference, or ask in class. Last but not least, is it interesting? You're going to be talking about this poster. Please try and find something that you care about or is remotely interesting to you. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard for you to talk about it with any kind of engagement or passion. So we've got some information. Now we need to think about designing your poster. So it is suggested that you do this in PowerPoint. If you're a whiz in Photoshop or something like that, you are welcome to do that. But if you're not, then PowerPoint is perfectly okay for you to do this. But you are going to need to change the slide size. So if you're not sure how to do this, just Google how to get a custom slide size. Hopefully you can see this. The width is 67.733 centimeters and the height is 38.1 centimeters. That's going to be the right size to give crystal clear definition on your digital screen. So you do need to set the right slide size. At the end, when you finish designing, you're going to save this as a JPEG. That's an important step. It stops the different design components wandering around. It's a bit like freezing your screen as an image rather than the different components of your PowerPoint. So that's what you're going to be submitting in the end. And you're going to be submitting it in two places. You're going to be submitting it on Nile. The deadline for that is 30th of November. There's on the menu bar, there's a submit your work button area on the tab on the menu, and you go through there and you're going to upload your file there. But the second part to the assessment is to present it. And for that, you're going to bring it on a memory stick on the 4th of December. I'm going to talk more about what that presentation is going to be like in a minute. So when you're designing, you need to think about your font sizes. Imagine this big screen uh, about head height on the wall. They'll actually be on stands on the day. So you're going to be having these widescreen TVs. That's what you're going to be presenting on. So you're going to need to figure out what fonts are going to be legible from around a meter away, I'd say. So it's up to you. Part of your job is to make good decisions about what font sizes to use. The next thing is to think about your narrative flow. So here are some examples. You could decide to put your information like spokes of a wheel. So this first example, you could think of the information behaving like that. So if you were to talk about this poster, maybe you'd go around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like that. The second example is in columns. So you could go like this, like this, like this, like this, or could get rid of that. You could go like this and like this and like this and like this. You'd need to think about it. The third example is in rows. So here I'm assuming that it goes like this. So think about how your story will flow. Please use images. Okay, this is an infographic. You're supposed to be a little bit creative. This is about advertising. So please do use images. Try and use high resolution files so that you get nice crisp images when it's blown up to a large size. But yes, illustrate what you're saying with pictures. Unless you feel like you really can't do it competently, in which case you probably shouldn't. But yes, pictures make this come to life as far as I'm concerned.
Presentation day will be on Thursday, the 5th of December. Now, some of you have a class that day, some of you don't. So here's what we're going to do. We will have an area called the Owl's Nest booked for the whole day. The Owl's Nest is on the ground floor of the Learning Hub. You might know where the student information desk is.
So how can you prepare for this speech then? I've just said it's not a speech, so how can you prepare to talk about it? Well, I've put down here a set of questions which are ones that I'd be kind of likely to ask. So why did you pick this one? Tell me a bit more about it. Where did you get this? Tell me more about this statement or this fact or this advert. So here, I'd be picking on something that I've noticed on on your poster and asking you more about it. So it's really important that you don't just slap words up there. You need to have a bit of a backstory. You need to be able to talk about what's there. Talk me through your poster. This is where you get a chance to start at the beginning. Now, you probably won't get all the way to the end because I would ask you a question before we got there, but at least if you have an idea about where you would start or how you would talk about how you've arranged your information. Where did you get your information from? This goes back to that whole business of referencing. I'm going to be asking you about that, and you need to know. You don't have to actually remember every single bit of the reference, but you should have an idea where you've been getting your information from, or I will be worried. And then the next thing, what do you think is your best piece of information on here? I want you to feel like you've got some sort of enthusiasm and ownership for the piece of research that you just did. So this is where you get to actually demonstrate that you're interested really in the information you found out. So that's, you can prepare this by standing up. Good idea to do it standing up next to your poster or next to, put it on your laptop and practice talking about your poster. If you do it in enough time, then you will be able to have a few run-throughs. And actually, there is time between the hand-in day and the presentation day. So you've definitely got at least a weekend to practice this. Talk to some people who don't know anything about it and just get them to ask you about your poster. So finally, good luck. We want you to do well. We're trying to give you lots of support so you do it. And if there's anything that is unclear in here or that you still feel you don't know, you still have some time. So go back over your lecture notes and ask in class if you're stuck, and we will certainly try and help you. Thank you.